Hi, I'm Tim.
And I'm Jennifer.
Welcome to Psychology of Everyday Success, brought to you by the Owens Group. Today's topic is understanding and healing from father wounds. But
But
before we
before
get
we,
started, we want to remind you that immediately following this broadcast at 3:15 p.m. Eastern, we'll be hosting a Facebook Live session where you can join the conversation, ask questions, make comments, and receive immediate feedback live. You can find us online by going to Facebook and searching Psychology of Everyday Success Network. We hope to see you there.
father wounds, father wounds, they tend to start with father hunger. So, what is father hunger? Father hunger is the normal and natural emotional hunger or desire that all children have to know, love, and be connected, and loved and approved even by their biological fathers or a father figure in their life. When the father hunger isn't met or satisfied, it's almost always results in a child experiencing a very deep and painful emotional and spiritual even father wound.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the definition of father wound. So a father wound is usually a deep emotional and spiritual wounding. If the wound isn't healed in childhood, it is likely to follow the child into adulthood. Father wounds don't tend to heal automatically by themselves. Healing comes through intentional and specific emotional and spiritual work done by the individual, but generally assisted by someone who has a deep understanding of father wounds and how to help heal them. Typically, that's
Mhm.
a therapist, a counselor, a psychologist, or a trusted spiritual advisor.
Mm-hmm. Differences between a father wound and a mother wound. They're a little bit different.
Right.
So listen in. A mother's love lets you know that you are loved and nurtured. A father's love lets you know that you're worthy of being loved.
Yeah.
If you don't believe your father truly loves you, it's likely you won't see yourself as worthy of being loved either. And therefore, you won't be able to receive love when it is given. Wow, that is so true. I live that out.
Sure.
No matter how much a mother's love is given, it's not a substitute for father love and can't heal or prevent the father wound.
Mm. Absolutely. And so ultimately, typically when we start talking about father wounds and mother wounds, we want to ask who is to blame, right? So who's to blame for the father wound? Well, let me
Mhm.
just start by saying, first of all, you are not to blame for your father wounds. You didn't cause them. You didn't make them happen. Your father, interestingly enough, is not likely the only cause of your father wounds either.
Yeah.
Your father likely experienced intergenerational trauma from his father that he passed on to you.
Mhm.
Most fathers want to be good fathers. And believe it or not, they're doing the best they can with what they were given to work with from their own fathers. So, what are some reasons that people develop father wounds? Well, this may not be true for everybody, but some reasons that some people may have father wounds include, first of all, your father could have been absent from your life growing up simply because he chose to be. He may have chosen to be absent from your life growing up. That could
Mhm.
lead to a father wound. Your father could have been absent from your life growing up due to circumstances that he couldn't control.
Mhm.
Sometimes that leads to a father wound. Your father could have lived in your home growing up, but was too busy to with work or business to pursue business pursuits to show you the kind of attention and approval and appreciation that you needed as a child. That could lead to a father wound. Your father
Mhm.
could have been physically abusive to you and or your siblings in the name of discipline and correction. That could lead to a father wound. Your father could have been physically abusive to your mother and used his size and strength to intimidate her. That could
Yeah.
lead to a father wound.
And another father wound could also be that you could have been sexually abused, emotionally abused, mentally abused. Um, you and your siblings.
Yeah.
Your father could have, been absent in your life, but in a way that didn't involve intimacy or love or vulnerability with you. Your father may have experienced an addiction to alcohol or other drugs that caused him to place his own needs before you or your family.
Mm.
Your father could have experienced significant mental health challenges that kept him from being able to establish or communicate or have a healthy parenting relationship with you. Your father could have been incarcerated during the majority of your childhood, and you just didn't get to know him until you were like a teen or even an adult.
Mm.
Your father could have died during your childhood, rather by disease at the hands of another or by his own actions. So even that could cause a father wound.
Yeah,
There are probably others we haven't mentioned, but there are a few possibilities.
sure. So let's move on and talk about signs of father wounds. How do you know if you have one? Well, interestingly enough, one way that you know is you're in denial that you need or even want a father figure or father figure in your life. You know, I hear people say sometimes, I don't even need a father. I didn't have to have one growing up, and so I don't need one. That might be a sign that you have a father wound. Secondly, the belief that if I'm not good enough, or accomplished enough, or perfect enough, uh,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm sorry, if I am good enough, accomplished enough, or perfect enough, I will be worthy of my father's love and approval. Right? We see people trying to be perfect and do everything perfectly and accomplish great feats because ultimately they're trying to get their father's love or approval. Um, and that's a sign that you probably have a father wound. Um, you find it hard to trust men, even those who have treated you well, because you believe that eventually they will betray, disappoint, or let you down in some meaningful way. That's probably a sign that you have a father wound. You have difficulty asking for and or receiving help or assistance from your father or father figures in your life. That's often, there's a father wound there. Your self-esteem is often low, no matter how much you accomplish in life or how much opportunity you've been given to excel. That's often the sign of a father wound. You have difficulty getting and or staying motivated to do even simple things in your life. Sometimes that means you have a father wound. And then you have a hard time establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries in relationships. That is to say, your boundaries tend to either be too loose because you're hoping someone will come into your life and kind of fulfill the longing that you have for a father, or on the opposite side of that, your boundaries are often overly strict in order to protect your heart from being hurt again by men who may promise to meet your need for a father, but ultimately end up making you feel worse.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Kind of think about that for a minute. Other reasons are you may be in and out of a relationship very easily. You enjoy the newness and the novelty of a relationship, but tend to look for a way out when challenges are encountered. I know I went through that. You often choose to be in a relationship with partners who are themselves hurting emotionally, or they're choosing unhealthy drama to express their pain.
Mm.
Sometimes it might be that you tend to experience a learned helplessness that may cause you to form emotionally unhealthy and codependent relationships. You may have a savior complex, and I put quote unquote, which causes you to try to rescue others in order to feel better about who you are.
Yeah.
And that can be a thing.
That's a thing.
Um,
Sure.
and so now we're going to talk a little bit about healing from father wounds. And these are just a couple of facts.
Yeah.
One, we must just realize it won't be a fast healing process. You have to acknowledge, that's number two. Got to acknowledge your father hunger. You have to admit that it's normal, it's natural to want a relationship with your biological father because that's just innate. Everybody has that need and that desire. Whether you want it or not, it's really not a choice, it's just a thing. No
Absolutely.
matter how much they have hurt you or other members of your family, it's innate.
Hmm.
Acknowledge that your father wounds exist instead of just being in denial about them.
Right.
And then allow yourself to feel what you feel about your father, whether it's, the hate, the anger, the abandonment, or just even the desire to want to connect. Like, deal with that. Like, don't deny it. You know,
Mm.
whatever you feel is valid and it's normal.
Hmm.
Find others in your family, community, or sphere of influence with whom you can build healthy father mentoring relationships.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Very important.
Begin to work towards truly forgiving your father, but not so much because your dad deserves it, but because you don't deserve to experience the negative impact of unforgiveness in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we want to kind of wrap up by saying this. Remember, your father wounds didn't start with you and likely didn't start even with your father. Your father wounds are a result of generational and intergenerational trauma that need to be worked through to heal and overcome. But we truly believe that if you get the help that you need from professionals who understand father wounds and have the skills to help you to heal, it's completely possible to heal from them in your life and to keep from passing them down to future generations in your family. Absolutely critical. So this concludes our program for today. Well, we invite you to join us again next time at Psychology of Everyday Success on the radio on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern via internet radio. Just go to urbanenterprisestulsa.com and click on Stream Urban Radio Online. For more in-depth discussion, find us on Facebook Live immediately following the radio show by going to Facebook and searching Psychology of Everyday Success Network. We are Psychology of Everyday Success, helping you become your best self so that you can live your best life.
Best life.
Join us.
Join us. Have a good one.